So in this video, I'll be talking to one of the biggest names in online music production tutorials today, and I'll be picking his brains on the topic of music production for beginners, so don't go anywhere. Now last week I had the pleasure of sitting down with Graham from the recordingrevolution.com, which is a hugely successful blog and YouTube channel. Now Graham has really pioneered this empowering view for beginners, which is that you don't need the latest gear, you don't need expensive plugins and software to be able to make professional quality music. All you need is some really basic equipment which is more affordable now than it's ever been before, and good knowledge and education on how to use your software. Now investing time in education is a really core value here at The Audio Journey. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview and hear what Graham had to say on the topic. So, Graham, why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers and tell them what you're all about?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on, John. I'm excited. You're another example of this revolution of someone taking the reins and trying to teach more people how to do this, because every day more and more musicians are coming online and realizing gear is really affordable. Software has made it possible to record and mix your own music at home. There's education out there that exists to teach you this stuff if you haven't been to audio school or can't afford it or don't live near one. So, I was seeing this happening 10, 15 years ago, and it was not even as rich of a time as it is now to be making music. And I thought it was exciting then. And so in my mind, I felt like we were at the beginning of this revolutionary period of music making where now it's democratized. So now any kid with a laptop or a phone, even their smartphone, can start making a record. And that means the music making is in the hands of the people again, as opposed to the gatekeepers of a label or a radio station or a studio. So that's kind of exciting. So I started making content mostly to help my friends who are super talented musicians. They didn't go to audio school. They're not into the audio stuff like I was, but they knew they needed to know some of it to get some demos done or make a record at home. And they just were like, Graham, just give it to me straight. What do I need to buy? Because that's confusing. Because if you get on any internet forums or websites, you have a whole host of opinions. What do I need to buy and how do I use it? And the recording revolution began as just a collection of some of those conversations I've been having. I was like, how about I just put together a few posts online, then I could just send all my friends to this one little website. They could just read the 10 articles, or I thought that's all it would be. And that was about 7.5 years ago. And it's become a huge part of what I do. Wasn't my plan, wasn't interested in blogging or having a site or doing a YouTube channel, but turns out there's a huge need for it. Turns out it's a lot of fun. And turns out it's really the beginning of this incredible time that I think we're just at the very beginning of. So I do a lot of just training and tutorials and teaching and coaching on all things music and audio.
Fantastic. That's really interesting that it started so long ago, because we see companies in the industry like Focusrite and other companies that, like you say, you can record onto a smartphone now, and it's just becoming massively popular, but it has been happening for quite a long time. So why don't you give us a brief history of your first 2 or 3 years in audio production, how you got into it, what made you want to get into it, and how you got going?
Yeah, I mean, I was just a kid in a band. I had a really awful band in high school. We thought we were really good, and we wanted to record an album, and it was the classic dilemma of, okay, this is how much money we have as 4 young high school kids. Here's how much it costs to go to our local studio per hour. How many hours can we afford? Can we get the whole album done in that time? Depends on how you record it, depends on how prepared we are, depends on how much they can do in mixing. And we decided, instead of going to the studio, we would get on eBay and buy a Korg 8-track, which I thought was amazing because I thought 4 tracks were all there was. It turns out there's an 8-track hard disk recorder. And we bought that and some microphones that we had at our rehearsal space. And we figured we'll just figure out how to use this thing. It was an awful user manual. It made no sense. Nobody wanted to learn how to use it. I didn't want to learn how to use it. I'm not a technical person. I just wanted to make my album, but I was motivated enough to get the album done that I was like, fine, I'll read the manual, figure out what multi-track recording is. And that was the beginning of my love affair for the recording process when I realized the simple thing that's so common these days for home studio people, but back then like blew my mind, was I can record on one track. I could then record another part and see if it works. I could sing a harmony with myself and test it out and see if that harmony works. I could try things and blend them together. So I learned pretty quick that this is something I wanted to know more about. And there was no YouTube. There was no Recording Revolution. There's no Audio Journey. There was nothing. It was just Sound on Sound magazine, Tape Op magazine. And that was it. I didn't know how else could I find. I was trying to get on some internet websites. There were some people writing about it, but this is like the 90s. Like, who was writing about audio production? So I fiddled and I made bad records in my bedroom. And then I went to college a couple years later, and I realized you could go to college to learn audio recording, because I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to be a rock star, like a lot of us do. It's like, that's all. If I just do that, I'll get plenty of money and I can skip the school thing. But my parents said, you have to go to school. And I was like, well, I can go to school and do audio and recording and mixing and production. So to me, that was like a big giant playground and a good compromise. And I got a lot more foundational training there and learned a lot and met some cool people and got to make some more records. And that convinced me that I could go freelance. I could do this. I was recording bands in my dorm room and getting paid to do it and having fun with it. And that really is what sort of began all of this.
Fantastic. It's really interesting to see that, again, it can come from such beginnings of no technical background and just the sort of love for music. If you pick up that it's something that you can really turn into a career, then it's something that even without the resources that are available now, it's more than possible to do. So yeah, that's really cool to hear. What do you think the biggest challenges were in those first few years when you were starting to learn, whether it was lack of resource, the gear that you had? What do you feel like were the biggest things that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was lack of education. So the gear has gotten a lot better, for sure, than it was then. But I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand what was possible with EQ. Like, I understood what like lows, mids, and highs were. You can get in your car stereo and kind of boost. So I had the conceptual knowledge, but I didn't realize the power of EQ and how to think about using it. Compression. I never understood compression. Even as a guitar player, you can buy compression pedals for your stomp boxes, and I was like, what does a compressor do? To me, all I thought about was effects. Like, it doesn't make the sound different. So why would I want to get a compression pedal? Because I just didn't understand what a compressor was doing. And so lack of knowledge, man, made me, all I knew was I could arm a track, record it, and I had to nail that take. I didn't know how to edit it. I didn't know how to make it sound better. I could throw some echo and delay and stuff on it, some chorus effect. It sounded awful because I didn't know what was possible or how to do it. And that's almost why every time I make a video or write an article or send out an email, I'm so motivated to make the absolute best video or article possible, because I'm making the content for the guy or gal that was me, 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago, where I didn't know what to do. I would have loved to have someone say, here's all an EQ is. Here's what the knobs mean. Here's how to think about EQ maybe when you're mixing and what's possible, and show me before and after. And then I would have loved that. And YouTube and my channel and all these things now is like having a friend, a mentor, come into your bedroom or your living room and literally show you. You can hear and you can see, and it's like right in front of you. It's as close as audio school as you can get to audio school, and it's free. And it's almost better because you can almost curate what you need the most right now. Like right now, I don't understand compression on vocals, so you can go right to that lesson and watch it over and over again and have the professor, to say it over and over again till you lock it in. So yeah, I just was frustrated because I didn't know what I didn't know. And going to audio school, I realized, wow, I really don't know a lot. And to me, that was exciting because the gear didn't change. The knowledge changed, and then I would go implement the knowledge and get better results. And so that's a huge reason why I've never really been a proponent of buying new gear, although there's nothing wrong with that. And I have bought new gear over the years. I don't see it as the end all be all, because I know that education has been the end all be all. So the gear can change. You could take away my whole studio and just give me the most budget interface today, and one $40 microphone and I could go make a killer record because I know what to do with it now. Whereas 15 years ago, you could have put me in the nicest studio and I would have made an awful record because I didn't know what I was doing. And so to me, that's the difference maker.
Fantastic. And that's something that I think I completely agree with. I mean, the gear is something that you get told to focus on so much. Like, obviously companies promote so much stuff, but at the end of the day, if you want to run a marathon, then buying the latest Nike shoes isn't going to make you do that. You have to go out and pound the pavements. You have to run. You have to use it, and you have to learn how to run. What kind of runs are going to get you there? And it's really that sort of time investment in learning and education that's really going to get you there. So that's really good to hear. I would completely agree with that. So do you think along the way you picked up anything really valuable, any valuable tips, resources that you would tell yourself? You would go back and say, Graham, just do this. Like, if you could go back 15 years in time, what would you tell yourself? Say, have a look at this, or just make sure you do this?
Oh man, there's a million things I would tell myself, but there's a few simple things, like on the recording end of things. If you look at making a song to share and release it, you know, there's actually multiple steps, but if you wanted to really generalize and say there's the recording side and then the mixing side, on the recording side, I wish I knew early on that when you record into a digital interface, especially back then, but still today, to not record so loud. All I thought was like the meter. I never used a meter other than like a giant clip light. Like, who cares what the level was as long as it didn't clip? So in essence, why even have a meter? Just have a giant clip light. That's the way I used it. Like, as long as it's not clipping. And in fact, I would take it a step further. I was taught, like, record things as hot or as loud as possible without clipping to like maximize the bits or the sound or whatever, which is actually a giant lie. It's really a holdover from the analog world, where we needed to get louder than the tape hiss and louder than the console hum and louder than all the noise floor. Just recording was a nightmare until the last 10 years. I mean, everyone wants to go back to the good old days, but they were awful. They were loud and noisy. People 50 years ago would have killed for the pristine, quiet, clear recording environment of a $99 Focusrite Scarlett Solo and a SM57. They would have killed for that. So that's a holdover from, like, get above the noise floor without overly distorting. But there's two problems with that digital. Is one, there's no noise floor anymore. Your recording environment is the equipment is quiet. So and you can always make it louder later, and it's not going to increase any noise. So you don't have to be loud for anything. And also the opposite, in clipping sounds awful in digital. When clipping in the analog domain actually doesn't sound awful, it distorts kind of nicely like a guitar amp, and it sort of rounds it off. So it's a very different world. I wish I knew that. So all my magazines were telling me how to record tape, basically, in the 90s. And here I'm trying to replicate that into my Dell sound card in my computer with like an 1/8-inch jack. I didn't even have an audio interface. I like somehow took a microphone and jacked it down into the sound card, and it sounded awful. Mostly because I just recorded as close to the top without clipping. So yeah, what's one way to make your converters sound their best is just turn it down on the way in. So your actual preamp, turn that knob down a bit. Mic placement, I was so lazy. I would just put up a microphone in front of a guitar or a drum kit or my mouth, and I would assume that's what it sounds like. I would never really take the time to adjust the angle, the distance, where am I in the room, what's behind me. I didn't play with that because I didn't think it would make that much of a difference. The magazines tell you the microphone will make a difference. And while every microphone sounds different, you could have one microphone and just adjust it all day long and have totally different sounds. And so I didn't know about that. I wish I had spent more time in early days adjusting mic placement until it sounded its best. Now I'm a little more picky on recording day. I'll take the time to get it right. And then also in the recording phase, I recorded as many tracks as I could possibly think of, and I would just layer things as opposed to strategically thinking about arrangement. There's an article I want to do, or a video, I haven't done it yet, that'll be something like what Green Day, Eve 6, and Lit can teach us about super wide mixes. And the point is, like, all those bands have the same format of one main guitar part, but it's double tracked, panned wide. So there's really only like two guitar tracks, bass and drums and vocals up the middle, and it sounds massive. It's like, why does it sound massive? Because there's only two guitar tracks, And it's really simple. If you layer so many guitar tracks, it just starts to get mushy and less distinct. So less is more, and strategic arrangement makes the difference of how big something can sound. I would just try to layer as many guitar parts, and it would just all kind of mush together. So again, all these things, none of these things have anything to do with buying new equipment. And to me, that's really exciting because I know the difference maker. I can tell the Graham from 15 years ago, the people that are learning today, and that Graham from 15 years ago could be a 12-year-old kid in China or a 65-year-old retiree here in the United States who finally has the time to get back into recording, and have everyone in between that are trying to learn recording. I can tell them, whatever equipment you already have is probably good enough. So here's a free solution to get better results. Just watch these videos, read these articles, and then go practice. It costs you nothing but your time. And to me, that's like great news. Who wouldn't want to hear that news? So yeah, those are three things on the recording end that just, in my mind, I would have benefited a lot from.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think that's really valuable in the sense that it's been a very, very recurring theme that it's not about the gear, which is what even SoundOnSound will still tell you. It's this plugin or this interface is revolutionary. It's got the best preamps. It's going to get you such an incredible sound. You're like, I need that interface now.
Oh yeah.
It's absolutely not the case. And it's really reassuring to hear it from someone that's done it firsthand. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And just to end off, if you could have one inspiring line to give to budding producers today, what would you tell them about their future?
Oh man. I hear from people who are afraid that like the music industry doesn't exist anymore, or there's no hope for them to move into this as a career. And I just don't see it that way. I see it as yes, one iteration of the music industry that reigned for a long time is dying. And we're in transition. We have been for 15 plus years, but we're in major transition. But this is dying, and on its ashes, and that affects a lot of people. I have people that their jobs are going away, and so it does affect them and their family, and they will have to adapt. And I'm not trying to make light of that, but industries change, always have, and our industry is now changing. And on top of those ashes of the dying industry is going to be a new version of the music industry that is just different. And if you embrace the differences, pay attention to the differences, you will see opportunities to make a career in this new landscape, in this industry. And to me, there's actually this new version of the music industry offers more opportunity for more people to make a living, simply for the fact that the barrier to entry to make a living in this industry is much lower. So I'm a good example of that. I have been able to record and mix people and make a living doing that for years. First part-time, then full-time, and then I can fluctuate in and out only because I don't need a built-out studio anymore, and the equipment cost is very, very low, and it's very mobile. So it's allowed me to put money in my pocket, moving not just from recording the albums as a band anymore, but now as a freelance service provider. It's allowing more people to do that because costs are low. And then the internet now connects you to the entire world for your marketplace. If you want to mix bands, master bands, produce, co-write, or whatever it is, you can do most of it remotely. Everything except for recording bands. But even then, I did mobile recording where I would fly to places and bring my studio with me because it's so small and compact. That now the internet is a way to find new clients, to be connected to new artists, where whatever you're interested in the industry is now. You can live in this random small town and still be in the industry. A good example is I'm in Tampa, Florida, not a small town, a big city, but not a music city. Like if I really wanted to be in this business, I would, in theory, 10, 15 years ago, have to live in LA, New York, maybe Nashville if I'm in the US, maybe London, maybe Paris. Those would be the cities I'd have to be in to be doing anything. Now I can live in Tampa where my family is, where the other things that are important to me are, where I want to live, where the weather's nice. And I can run a very, very big website from my computer here. I can mix for bands all over the world from here. I can be an educator from here. I co-write. I'm co-writing songs with a guy in Miami and guys in LA. I can do anything in the industry because of the internet. So like almost anything in life, depends on how you view things, your perspective. From someone who's in this space, and I have a really interesting perspective in it, where I know a lot of people in the old guard, but I kind of came up in the new guard, and I have my hand in both the education piece, the freelance piece, and the artist piece. What I see is the most incredible time to consider going into the music industry. The word of warning would just be, don't hang all your hopes on one clear-cut stream of income or way of doing things. Be malleable, be strategic, have your hands in a few different things. It may not look the way you thought it would look like. I thought I'd be a rock star. I run a YouTube channel and I have a blog, but I get to make music whenever I want to, the music I want to make, and share it with thousands of people, and people like my music. So it's kind of like I'm a rock star, but I actually don't have to go tour anymore. I can make my own music videos and share them. You can be an artist and just make your own videos and share them. You can build a fan base. I have a friend, Peter Hollins, who is a cappella guy. He does covers, voice only covers of songs. And he's got over 1 million or 2 million subscribers on YouTube. And he puts out music videos every 2 weeks. And he makes a living, doing a really good living, being a musician with his music videos, but he lives in Oregon, in a small town in Oregon at that, not even in Portland, which is the only big city I know of in Oregon. Doesn't have to leave his house, and he's living the rock star life, but it's very different because of YouTube. So he's the artist side, I'm on the sort of engineering and education side, and we're both able to have a career in music because this whole new landscape has changed. It's just not the way we even grew up thinking it would be. He and I both thought we would be rock stars. He kind of is more of a rock star, but it's all through YouTube. And I landed more in the production and education side. So be creative, be encouraged, be a glass half full kind of person. But at the end of the day, and I talk about this as often as I can, at the end of the day, you have to understand that no matter what business you're in, or no matter what you're trying to do, to achieve success, whatever that means to you, the only way you get ahead, whatever that means to you, is by finding ways to add value to the people in the space you want to be. Instead of like wishing people would come to you, or wishing things would be different, or lamenting the way it is, that won't get you anywhere. You have to go out and see the way it actually is, then think, okay, how can I add a little bit of value to this space? You may not be the same as me, and it may not be the same as John, may not be the same as my buddy Peter on YouTube, but what can you do to add value to some people in this space? And just view yourself as a person that does that day in and day out. You will be liked and brought into other things because you're a person that just is adding tremendous value to what's already going on. That's what leads to things. And that takes a positive outlook, and it takes a little bit of courage to get out there and say, hey, I'd like to help in this way. I've reached out to people that I thought would never reach out to me. And it's cool to hear when they do. But if you have a way to add value to them, if like, hey, can I do this for you? I thought about this, or I've already done this for you. Check this out. Take it. Enjoy. That can get you in places that you'd never be able to get before. So think about adding value. Be optimistic. Be creative. And you can definitely make a living at this. There's never actually been a better time because it's open to more people.
Fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's going to be incredibly helpful. And jumping on what you said about adding value, I think that's something that people really need to understand. Even if sort of becoming a rock star, you wouldn't think, how am I going to add value to people's lives? You think that's what business people do and that kind of thing. But it really does put you in a position to be able to ask for something afterwards. And you shouldn't really feel entitled. If you're not giving value, then you shouldn't expect in return. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand. And I think something else that popped to mind there was an entrepreneur that I follow, Gary Vaynerchuk. He teaches sort of the principle that you've got to put yourself out of business or somebody else will. You've got to adapt with the times. And I think that sort of fits in with what you were saying there. You can either be a touring artist slaving away to make money in the way that people have been as an artist, right, or you can adapt. So yeah, it's really good to hear that again from yourself, who's been there and done it. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I hope it's helpful.
it's been great to have you on, and I'm sure the viewers are going to get a hell of a lot of value from this. And this is going to be going up on my channel. So if you do have any more questions, then feel free to drop them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you. And Graham might jump in there as well if he gets a second. It would be really good to hear what you think about the topics that we've discussed. If you've got anything else to add on, then feel free to jump in and leave a comment again. We'd love to hear what you think about the topics that we've talked about, if you've got anything else to add. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you did, then make sure you leave a like just down here. It really does mean a lot to me. If you've got anything to add onto what was said in the interview, or you've got a question that you want to ask, then drop it down in the comments and we'll get back to you. Now, this channel is focused on providing beginners a path into music production that's less intimidating than anything else out there. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, then definitely subscribe just up here, and you can check out some of my other content just up here. Now, I've been John Holt with The Audio Journey, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.